people who also have, or the opposite sex who also have a larger etheric body, when the barriers of those two bodies cross over, that's when you start to get the subconscious attraction come into play. There is no argument that one of the most profound spiritual teachers is Osho. Now, those of you familiar with Osho through Netflix documentaries like Wild Wild West will have a certain resistance as it becomes culty very quickly. But there is no doubt in my mind, if you've read his books, if you've watched some of the Western interviewers by some of these newscasters, he is a profound spiritual teacher. He is, I don't want to say enlightened. I mean, there's synonyms with enlightened perhaps. But there's no doubt in my mind that he was such a present, grounded being, and he had his fingers on the membrane, the pulse of consciousness in that way. Now, the reason why I'm referencing Osho is because of today's post. Now, this came up very recently, and the title grabbed me, and it actually made me think of something that I'd previously covered before. So I actually took a book called The Subtle Body, because I have a intuition about how Osho is describing attraction relative to the etheric body. So I'm just going to read the title and we'll go through it together. And as always, I'll add a little bit of color. But first, thank you, Ezekiel, for giving us this knowledge today. Osho on female attraction, magnetism, and SR is 100% accurate. Energy has been going downwards through the sex center continuously for many births. So when energy is created, when any energy is created, it will first try to move downwards. This is why meditation sometimes will create more sexuality in you than you have ever felt before. You will feel more sexual because you have generated more energy than you previously had. When you have conserved something, the old habitual passage is ready to release it. So this is a profound understanding that you will come to experience when you begin to conserve this energy and then pair it with meditation. You have to have an understanding, a familiarity with what you're doing. And the first thing that you will notice is you have an abundance of energy, which may manifest itself in pressure, in tension, in heaviness around the pelvic floor, the solar plexus area. And if you're not careful, like this individual is highlighting here, the natural transition for that kind of energy will be in replication, will be in reproduction. So it's first having sensitivity of it and then making sure our intention is pushing it elsewhere. So let's continue on. The mechanism is ready. The old passage is ready. Your mind only knows one passage, the lower one, the sexual passage. So when you are meditating, the first movement of your life energy will be downwards. Again, it's habitual. It's predicated in evolutionary biology. That energy is going to move through that natural pathway because it has no other reference point for it. Just be aware of it. Do not struggle with it. Just be aware of it. Be aware of the habitual passage. Be aware of the sexual imagery. Let them come. Be aware, but do not do anything about the situation. Just be aware of it. The sexual passage cannot operate without your cooperation. But if you cooperate with it, even for a single moment, it can start functioning. So a big emphasis on being this observer. This is why meditation is synonymous with this practice. I've mentioned before, you have to sit and be the observer. You have to sit and be the witness. You have to train your prefrontal cortex. This is higher brain activity. This is top-down control. The sexual reflex is the limbic system, is the animal, is the reptile, is very impulsive and reactive. It's non-intelligent in that way. Unless you have top-down control, which is to say you have strengthened the connections in your prefrontal cortex over your limbic system because the prefrontal cortex sits higher above the limbic system, then that's where the magic starts happening. That's where you take back control. So do not cooperate with it. Just be aware of it. The mechanisms of sex is so much a momentary phenomenon that it only functions momentarily. If you do not cooperate at the right moment, it stops. At the right moment of your cooperation is needed, otherwise it cannot work. It is only a momentary mechanism, and if you do not cooperate with it, it will stop by itself. Again, sitting in the seat of observation. Time and time again, energy is created through meditation. It continues to move downwards, but now that you're aware of it, the old passage is cut, not suppressed. Energy is there and it needs to be released, but the lower door is closed, not suppressed, it's closed. This is where you start to make the change, the transition, in moving that energy downwards, outwards through limbic system replication, and when you move it comparatively upwards towards mental procreation. You have not cooperated with it. That's all. You have not positively suppressed it. You have only negatively not cooperated with it. You have just been aware of what's happening to your mind, to your body. You are aware. Then energy is conserved. Then the quantity of energy becomes more and more intense, and an upward thrust becomes necessary. Now the energy will go upwards by its very force. A new passage will be thrown open. When energy goes upwards, you will be more sexually attractive to others, because life energy going upwards creates a magnetic force. This is what my intuition was telling me, and I'm going to refer back to my book in just a moment here after this passage. You will become more sexually attractive to others, so you will have to be aware of this. Now you will attract persons unknowingly, and the attraction will not only be physical, the attraction will be etheric. Even a repulsive body, a non-attractive body, will become attractive with yoga. The attraction is etheric and is so magnetic that one has to be constantly aware of it, constantly aware. You will be attractive and the opposite sex will be irresistibly drawn to you. So I made reference to this idea in previous videos that you are a magnet. The human body is a magnet. And I want to share with you one of the pages here in The Subtle Body by Cindy Dale. I'll just quickly show you. This is the book I'm referencing here. And one of the chapters of this book here in Energy Fields actually highlights that the body has two poles. It has the masculine pole, which is the positive, right? And it has a negative pole, which is more towards your genital area. And if you think about any magnet, its strength lies in the polarity between the two poles, right? You've got strong north and you've got strong south. Now, many of us, well, I'd say we're more a heady culture than any other kind of culture. We're very strong in the head, but we're very weak in the sexual organs because we're depleted of that energy. So you can imagine if you've got a magnet with a very, very strong positive pole and a very, very weak negative pole, then it doesn't have a very big pull. It relies on the other to magnetize, to increase the circumference, the orbit of the magnet. And you can kind of see this here. Let's bring this up. You can see this here in this image, that the etheric and energy fields around the body, again, from the head to the genital area and, to the legs and to the feet, how they expand, they're expansive, and it's intimately tied to this principle of the energies that we acquire in the head and the energies that we hold in our generative area in the sexual organs. So the reason why this happens to widen the pool when you're on this bout of continence is you have more energy there and you have greater polarity. You have greater polarity, so the fields begin to expand and expand and expand. And then, because this is subconscious, not conscious, you will recognize people come into your orbit, as it were, and they start to gravitate towards you because there is a palpable energy that they can't tangibly feel this. They can't measure it, but it has an effect on other organisms nearby. One of the remarkable things, and I always laugh when I tell people this, is during the longer streaks, animals become attracted to you. It's so weird. But I remember one time I was walking along to go to the gym, and I had like 6 or 7 squirrels following me, and I didn't have any nuts. Well, I had a different kind of. I was holding a different kind of nut, right? But I wasn't in an area with squirrels, and I didn't have any food on me or anything like that. I was just walking. I think I went past a tree, and then they just jumped down, and they followed me for a good, 10, 20 meters or so. Dogs, when you're walking past people's dogs, they'll come up to you straight away, and they won't leave you alone, and their owners have to like pull them away from you. Again, an unusual benefit. I wouldn't even call it a benefit, but it's children as well respond to you differently. I was in the other day. I was in a coffee shop. I was in a Starbucks. I was waiting for my iced Americano, and this little girl, she was about 3 years old, maybe 2 or 3 years old. She was just running towards me, waving, laughing, and her mother was like trying to take her away from her, and then they'd go away, and then she'd come down and run back over to me. It's strange stuff like that happens, and there's no rational explanation for it, in my opinion, than it just be a consequence of the energy that is warping the kind of fields around you that you can't otherwise discern by your five senses, right? It's more a feeling. It's more a feeling people get in your presence. So we'll continue on here. There are subtle vibrations that are created by your etheric body, and you have to be aware of them. The type of attraction that will be felt by the opposite sex will differ. It will take many different forms, but basically it will be sexual. At its root, it will be sexual. But you can help these people, even if they are attracted to you sexually. They have become attracted to a sexual energy that is moving upwards, and they too are not ordinary sexual beings. Upward movement, sexual energy has become an attraction, a magnet, so you can help them. If you don't become involved, you can help them. So this is from Osho. Forgive me, it was very difficult for me to discern some of the way he writes his sentences, because he writes in a very, he's present and he's not trying to rationalize what he's saying. He's just allowing, what he's saying to flow out of him, as opposed to maybe edit it for a reader. But you understand the sentiment in which it proceeds. Hopefully my analogies there can give you greater context. Let's talk about some of the comments in here. We've got something by Ezekiel himself in relation to other people saying that this is an accurate experience when feeling urges and pushing that sexual energy up towards the brain. You are doing it wrong if you ignore those urges. Repression begets obsession. If you want to experience the bliss, just accept that you are an animal and this influx of energy is natural to you. This is the basis of a human being. When this sudden urge, horniness, lust, whatever you want to call it, comes, just look at it and try to breathe it in and out. This is what I say. Welcome it. It's a sign of your healing, and it's a sign of your virility and your health when you do this. You can even imagine breathing it as the energy is traveling from your balls up towards your brain. Just a quick one here. People think that there's an actual connection here between your sexual organs and your spine in terms of it going backwards this way. There's actually a nerve which starts from your testicles and goes up, and I can't remember which vertebrae it is, but there is a connection between your sexual organs and your nervous system, which ties into your spinal cord. So there is a physical connection there. So when he's talking about, you might have heard testicle breathing, you're thinking more about the nervous connection as opposed to, let's say, a biological connection. So you're breathing in up through the nerves as much as anything, and that's where it starts, the neural connection that you have with those two things. You're trying to ignore it. You trying to ignore it might work for a week, but eventually you'll become frustrated, repression of energy, and it will make you relapse. Yeah. Simply stop when the urges come, look at it, breathe slowly. It's that simple. Common sense isn't common these days, but humans have a tendency to overcomplicate things. Yeah. Osho was a genius. I agree. So gentlemen, I just want to drop off a little bit of, again, the first time reading that, very, very interesting to me. Some free game off this evening or morning, whatever you're watching this video. I hope it was helpful, insightful. I should add, as I always do, attraction shouldn't be the goal of what you're doing. It should just be a lifestyle, right? To recognize that we have different ways of demonstrating value to women other than the car we drive, the suit that we wear, our genetics, our facial structure, the money we have, but we can actually attract them in a way where it's more spiritual, it's more holy, it's more pure, and it's more predicated on just being in alignment with the, you can call it God, you can call it universe, you can call it cosmos, whatever the word that is most comfortable with you, whatever your God is. And when you're living this way, the universe will put these individuals in your path, and they will begin to be drawn to your magnetic field. And you have to recognize as well, if their field is large because they're not engaged in degenerate behavior, you'll attract the right kind of people, right? You'll attract people that are in your magnetic orbit. So as I mentioned before, you have this bigger etheric body now around you. You can imagine, if you look at me here, there's this big etheric body out here. People who also have, or the opposite sex, who also have a larger etheric body. When the barriers of those two bodies cross over, that's when you start to get the subconscious attraction come into play. Now, there will be individuals out there whose body is a lot weaker, and they will sense it when they come closer into your orbit. And typically these are the individuals who want to take your energy from you. But you want to be more sensitive to those individuals that are preying on you as a consequence of trying to take something from you, and those individuals that are just drawn to you from afar, again, because it's more energetic, it's more subconscious, it's more natural, it's more aligned with nature, who genuinely just want to marry those two bodies together on a principle of energy and God and spirit and cosmos, and again, all of those synonyms that I mentioned previously. But I'm speaking too much today. These aren't theories, these are facts, gentlemen. And if you enjoyed that, subscribe to me, and I'll speak to you very, very soon. Take care.